Hello and welcome to today's session on SAP Fiori, keeping simple things simple. For today's agenda, we're going to take an overview look at Fiori itself, have a look at some of the basic features, functions that come out of the box. We'll start to take a look at some of the theming characteristics, how we can change the look and feel, the branding of Fiori itself. We're then going to start to take a look at how we can extend Fiori, how we can add additional capabilities to the existing scenarios, and how we can create our own scenarios. This will be followed by a live demonstration of the product itself. We'll then wrap up today's session with an outlook view of what's to come in Fiori, especially in Wave 2 by the end of this year, and then we'll take some questions from the floor. Hi, good morning everybody. My name is Kevin Richardson from SAP Technology and Mobility. Before we start to take a look at Fiori, I just want to take a moment to explain a little bit about the UI evolution at SAP. As we can see over the years, SAP has evolved. This is because of new technologies, new capabilities within there, and devices. Devices have become the mainstream look and feel of accessing any information that we look at today. If we start to look at what our strategy is behind that premise, we can see that SAP has looked at three different characteristics of that. New scenarios. So this is new capability that SAP is going to be developing today. This will be using SAP's newest and latest UI tooling called SAP UI5, a HTML5 based tooling capability. We're then going to start to take a look at how we can renew over a period of time some of the existing functions and capability within SAP. We call this SAP Fiori, or in the renew category from that. There is the final one, which is the enable. This is taking existing pre-used scenarios that are in place today, such as sales order create, purchase order create, for example, in the mainstream GUI, and we call this SAP Personas. SAP Personas is not going to be covered in today's session, but simply taking a look at SAP Fiori. So what is SAP Fiori? Well, broadly, it's taking a look at the new consumer experience. Customers today are used to, or in demand and expect, to be able to use consumer grade characteristics when accessing enterprise grade software. We look at Twitter, Facebook, Flickr, for example. These have become the new expectation of today's community. SAP has taken that on board and applied that to the SAP enterprise capabilities today. So we introduced a new concept called SAP Fiori. SAP Fiori is a consistent look and feel across all major areas of access points into the SAP system. Irrespective of whether you're accessing it through a smartphone, a tablet device, or through your desktop browser, the look and feel is consistent. We call this a collection of scenarios with a simple look and feel. Remember, the strap line for SAP Fiori is keep simple things simple. This is standard out-of-the-box capability, doesn't require the use of a mobile platform, but what it does require is pre-configured capability that exists already in the back end. So for example, there's not much point in trying to implement a leave request if you're not already using leave requests in the back end HR, HCM system, for example. This enables our customers to leverage their existing SAP investments by providing instant value for all of their employees. Not just their employees, but their managers, their sales representatives, and their purchasing clerks, for example. The first wave of scenarios that SAP has released back in April this year included four main roles. They were the manager role, and these are the approval type processes. So things like taking a leave request, being on the move, being able to approve that leave request and not having to wait to get back into the office to approve that capability. Or take it to the other extreme, something like a shopping cart capability. These roles and these scenarios are based on two main business components today. The SAP ECC, the core component, and SAP SRM. These will be extended into other applications and components, and more on that a little bit later. But as you can see from the 25 scenarios that are available today, majority of them are in the manager and employee capabilities. These are typically what we call ESS MSS capability. We have extended some of those use scenarios, and bearing in mind these are the top 25 use scenarios which were defined by our customers when we went out to the user community and looked at how we were going to and what we were going to build. These are the top 25 scenarios that our customers gave to us. So if we start to take a look at how that looked within the SAP system, here you can see a standard out of the box, and each of these scenarios, or what we call tiles on the screen, is fully customizable. They're based against your role. So if a user has access to ESS capability, we'll see the full suite of ESS capability. More on a little bit later on how we can change and modify some of the look and feel of this. But one of the things that we do give you out of the box is the ability to change the look and feel and the branding capability. This is done through the use of what we call a theme designer. Here you can see a screenshot of where I've loaded up a very simple scenario called My Leave Requests. I've pulled it up into the theme designer. I haven't changed any of the aspects of that yet. We'll more on that a little bit later, but as you can see, I can change the basic colors, add a little logo if I want. On the expert side of things, I can start to tile, add highlights to other things, and then I've got a CSS tab which I can put in my own coding if I want. So, just to summarize a little bit, SAP Fiori offers out-of-the-box business-rich process capabilities. This is leveraging your existing back-end platform, your back-end scenarios, and mobilizing them through the use of a browser, not through the use of a mobile platform, but simply through a browser today. We support the concept of additional configuration. So for example, not all leave types and all leave categories are relevant for, dare I say, browser use or mobile use out on the field. So we can limit and restrict what type of info types are going to be used through this type of channel. We provide a UX design approach which allows simple branding. You can change the look and feel of Fiori in a few simple clicks, save that and publish that. You can have more than one theme on there. And of course, the last thing is ready for extensibility. Now, to explain a little bit about how that is extended and what needs to be done, I'd like to invite John Lachlan from Comprise. Hi. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Hi. John, just before we continue on, can you just explain a little bit about who CompriseIT are?
Certainly, yes. And I'll do that via a slide. So CompriseIT are a UK SAP consultancy specializing in the technology areas of SAP. So that's not the core, but more of the database and technology suite of products that SAP have brought to market, which include Gateway, UI5, and hence Fiori, but also things like process orchestration, HANA, mobile, and the cloud technologies. So we hope that we can help customers utilize this technology to make the most out of their investments in the core SAP business suites, which is obviously what Fiori does for customers by leveraging a UI5 framework on top, which allows them to access SAP functionality from a desktop, a mobile, and a tablet with a better ease of use and a better user experience. So let's just move on there and have a look at and go under the covers of SAP Fiori and look how it's deployed and look how it can be extended for use outside of the core 25 applications that you've got. So firstly, let's look at the architecture. Fiori is based on a core component which sits on a NetWeaver ABAP stack, which is NetWeaver Gateway. So if you've not heard of Gateway, it's a free component. It comes with Solution Manager version 7.1 SP5 and is available, if not, to download from your SAP Marketplace. So once you've deployed it on an ABAP stack, you can then deploy the Fiori OData services on top. So Gateway is really an abstraction layer from the business suite underneath it and a UI5 or a user experience, a development, a UI development on top of it. So sitting underneath Gateway is the business suite, and then it can access it via RFC calls to the actual business applications and the content underneath. It uses standard, in terms of Fiori, authorizations. So I will sign on to Fiori as if I was signing on to my SAP GUI. And all of the roles and responsibilities are taken through the SAP Gateway service. To configure it, at the moment, you need to actually, if you want to change any of the fields or add fields to it, you need to go in and change the actual OData service. Otherwise, in the future, there will be an app designer available which will allow you to do this in a slightly easier manner using a WYSIWYG designer. So once we've got these services deployed, and if we've changed them via the service in Gateway, we can then put the UI5s on top. So the mechanism of getting that data out into the open is using the UI5, SAP UI5 libraries, which is an extension of the HTML5 libraries out in the marketplace at the moment. And they allow you to, in a responsive design, which they're designed to do, to have the same application be responsive to the device it's landing on. So for example, on a desktop, obviously there's a lot more screen acreage, so you can see the whole of the application and all of the tiles like Kevin showed you in the screen demo screenshot earlier on, where we had all the tiles on the page. If you saw that on a mobile, you only get one tile on the mobile, and you'd flick up through them using the swipe techniques. So once we've deployed it and we've built it, we can have a look at extending it and theming it. There's a theme editor which we'll look at in the demonstration, and we can also add to it because it's using standards. So none of this is priority. OData is a standard, HTTPS and HTML5 are standards. We can go and either go in and change the scenario or create new scenarios from scratch. And we'll have a quick look at that during the demonstration. Moving on to deployments, there are a couple of ways to deploy it. We would recommend a central hub. So putting the gateway server on its own ABAP infrastructure. This means that you can have multiple ERP systems at the back end and all go through the one hub, so to speak, to present data from either multiple SAP systems at the back end, or you might just have a scenario that one is going from the ECC system and presenting that data, and you might have another scenario which is being deployed from the CRM system and putting that up there. And obviously the back end then, or the multiple back ends, just have a small add-on in place on the back end to communicate to the hub. The second scenario is having an embedded deployment, which means we actually put the gateway server on an existing SAP infrastructure. So that's more likely to be on your ECC system if you just have one SAP system, rather than deploying a new ABAP stack for the hub. You just put it onto that existing infrastructure. Plans in the future is to have that gateway into the cloud if necessary, but at the moment these are the two ways that you can deploy the gateway server and hence the Fiori applications on top of the gateway and the UI5. So what we're going to do now is go into a demonstration and show you some of these capabilities. So the first thing we'll do is go into standard Fiori and show you sort of three different scenarios. One is sales order creation, which really replaces or gives you the ability to create a sales order from scratch, to go through the process of adding products to that, creating that sales order, and then publishing that and putting that into the system. So we'll have a look at that. We'll look at spend analysis. So this is more of a looking at information underneath SAP for projects and departments to see how you're spending and compare that against the budget against the actual spend. And finally, we'll look at the approval scenario, which will be a purchase rec approval, and we'll see those three. Then we'll go and look at a themed Fiori and how we themed the scenario to make it look different. You can see here at the screenshot, we've got a Comprise logo on it, a different background, and different color fonts and tiles. And finally, we'll look at additional deployments. So we'll look at something that wasn't provided in Fiori, but we've added it, and it looks and feels exactly the same as a Fiori app that you'd get from the 25 applications you buy when you buy a license. And we've just created a simple user administration sample of that. And we'll look at how we went and deployed that into the Fiori framework and use that as part of our capabilities. So what I want to do now then is hand over and go into the demonstration, and after that we'll come back, do a wrap up, look at the outlook of Fiori, where that's heading in the future, and finally take questions and answers. As you can see, we're on the log-on screen. So the link at the top would be available from the desktop, from the mobile, or from the tablet. So one application will serve all three, and the user ID and password I'm putting in there is the same authorization I'd use in the SAP backend. So then we get on to our home screen, which has got the scenarios. So depending on your profile that you've logged on with, you might see one tile or all of the 25. So we're logging on to the sales order screen, and again, because I've logged on as me, I can only see 3 companies. So I pick the company I want to create the sales order for. It shows me any pre-existing sales orders in there, and I can use that as a template. So here I'm picking up the sales order 14487, using those 3 things and adding them to the cart. And you see at the top right, the cart's gone up to 3. I can also then go into the products and list the whole load of products that we can sell to this customer. Click on one, see the actual product, and then that takes it up to 4. So here we can have a look, and I can change here the delivery schedules. So once I've gone to the checkout, I can say if I want to move the delivery schedules out, but if I'm happy with that, I can then check out. And here it just shows me a summary of what I'm ordering, and here again, once I'm happy with that, I can then go into the shipping and payment. So I want to put a purchase order in here. So I'll put the company's purchase order number in and any shipping instructions that are needed. So once we get to the shipping, it's asked for Mr. Smith. And then I can review the order finally. And once I'm happy, create it. And you can see here who the company's being shipped to, see all the information and the products that we're creating the order for, place the order. And what happens now is that it goes away and gives you a order number back from SAP. So it's interacted, created the order in SAP, and returning you that this is order 14490. So once that's done, I can then, for example, go back to another scenario, which is track my sales orders. And if I quickly look in there, you'll see that I'll now have 4 sales orders, and the last one, or the top one, being the one I've just created, which was, if I get into the right company, 14490 for 540 euros 90 cents. So that was a quick overview of interacting with SAP, updating SAP, and then getting information back. What we'll do now is go back to the home screen and go into a sort of reporting type scenario, which is my spend. So I'm not going to interact with SAP here. I'm just going to pull data out and see how my budget versus spending is doing on my projects. So here I can see everything's good. I haven't spent anything this month. This is a report to month. Month to date, I've got £72,000 left in my budget. But actually, let's go and see something a bit more interesting, because I think I've set the data up to be in August. So if I go down and go to August in 2013, we can actually see some projects have spent some money. One's okay. You can see here I'm still in budget. I've only spent 16,000 of that budget, and my budget was 24. And then I can look around. So if hovering over one of these heat maps, shows me here, because it's amber, I'm nearly up to that budget. And if I want to look in more detail, I can click on the link underneath it. It takes me into the individual project and looks at all the spend. And here you can see that I've overspent my salaries. So I'm 19% over because I spent too much on salaries, and hence that's made this project, procurement 1, nearly out of budget. So that's a quick overview of the my spend application, and then finally we'll go into an approval application. So here is a scenario. Here's approved purchase recs. I think these are probably the better used on mobiles, where you'd see all of the requisitions you've got to approve, all the information that you might want to know about that. So what the material is, what the quantity, what the cost is. And if I want to approve this, I can just go down to the right hand here, say approve it, add any comments, click on approve, and now that purchase rec has been approved. Obviously I can go in and actually reject one. And if I needed to, the icon next to reject is forward. So I could forward this on to someone else that's got the right authority to either approve or reject this PO. Like I said, this would be a must for people on the move when they've got tablets and mobiles. So now we've seen the standard demos. You can see at the bottom right hand corner here, there are 3 scenarios which aren't part of the original 25: whistleblower, user admin, and gym membership. These are applications we've built using the framework of Gateway and UI5 to develop applications that look like Fiori. And it's also the way that when we look at these later on, we show you how to develop these, the way you'd go in and modify a Fiori app. So going into the user admin one, it's pulled back all the users in this system. And as you can see here, it very much looks like the other apps we've seen. We've got a list down the left-hand side where I can see all the users, and then the information on the right-hand side. And as I go down here, we'll pick a user that's got an erroneous entry in. So I think it's John Hardman, and actually there it should be John Hardman and not with a 2 in. I can update it. Once I update it, it gives me feedback to say that's been updated in the back end. I can also lock and unlock the user here. So locking him will lock him out of the system so he can't get access. Obviously, unlocking him means he can get access. Finally, there's what we call firefighter access, where we can go into and assign a user ID to a system, but only for a limited access. So you might want to go into a production system and give a user access just for 15 minutes because there's a problem there, and then revoke that access after 15 minutes. So that's an app that we've built to look and feel like Fiori and built on top of the existing framework that Fiori sits on. So going back to the home screen here, you've seen now that we've seen how we can get access to it via a URL link, that the security is all done via standard security in the back end, and that there's sort of 3 main Fiori type scenarios. If we move on from that, we can now look at a themed Fiori. So this is exactly the same scenarios, just looking different. So we've put a different background in, used a different logo at the top. You can see CompriseIT, different color fonts and so forth. But we haven't changed the underlying application itself. It just looks more like our a CompriseIT application. So let's have a look at how we do that. So what we'll do now is jump out of the actual application and go into the theme designer. So the theme designer is, as Kevin highlighted in his presentation, is an area where we can make changes to the look and feel of it, and there's 3 main modes. So the first thing we have to do is go in and pick an existing theme to modify. So I'm going to take the blue crystal, which is the standard Fiori theme. I'm going to go into that one and modify it, and I can do that in 3 different ways. I can do it as a quick and easy one, which we'll use as an expert, or using our own CSS files. So once we pick this one now and we go into it, we'll go into the application, and now I've got to set up an application that I want it to show me it in. So I'm going to pick the Fiori home screen here. So that's my application link. So that's the same link that we had to get access to our Fiori apps. I'm going to give it a name, and now I can actually see how it looks. And it gives me 3 preview modes. So the phone, so this is how it look on an iPhone. We can also see it in the tablet way. So if I click on tablet now, it should take me down and show it as a iPad app. And I can see now how that looks on the iPad app. And again, we're just looking at the blue crystal theme at the moment. And what I'll do now is choose the desktop view, and I'll go in and change that view and theme it. So here we go. We'll go into the desktop, and now it obviously looks the way that we looked at the demo as I was going through the scenarios earlier on. But what I've got access to now is the base colors and the line colors. So you can either use, if you know your corporate colors in terms of the RGB standard, you can go in and change them, or I can just use the slider and the box there to pick my colors. So what we're going to do here is theme a Fiori application as a recycling theme. So we're going to use greens to make them look nice and eco-friendly, and then we're going to pull in a logo with the recycle logo theme on it, just to show that we are green and environmentally friendly. So once I've got my base things set up, which are the colors at the top, the lines and so forth, and I'm happy with how the colors look, I can then go and pick an image. So I just go in and get the image background. And all I do here is just click on it, call it a name, and then this gives me an area where I can just drag and drop an image from any of my libraries that I've got into that placeholder. It then obviously uploads it into the theme editor. It shows it as it would show it in the background, and then I can manipulate it. So that looks a little bit too dark for me. I want to be a bit more see-through, so less opaque. And here now you can see the greens coming through from the background, and my tile is and my image looks better in the whole scenario. So once I've finished that and I'm happy with it, all we do then is go up to the theme and publish it. It will give us a unique link for that with the theme on it, and then I can publish that to the users, so they'll now see that. So moving forward, let's go in and create the new scenario. So we're gonna use the user admin app that we saw in the demonstrations, and what we're going to do here is look to see how we can develop that. And what we're going into is the Gateway Service Builder application. So we're going to actually build a service from scratch. So the first thing we have to do is go into that service builder. And this is an ABAP. This is on the Gateway server, so we're accessing the Gateway server here. It's obviously an ABAP program. So we're going to go in and give it a new project, and we'll call it obviously a webinar project. So this is my brand new service, and give it a description. So it's just going to be a webinar get user data service demo, and say create it. So we do a local object, and it now sets up that project that we can now start building that service in. So we're going to import a data model, and we're going to use an existing SAP business object from the business object repository to model that data. So I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it user data. I'm going to give it a type. So I'm now going to look at a type, and it's going to be a business object. We'll go find that business object, which is user get data, and now it pulls back that definition. So what I want to use there is username and first name and last name. So if I click on those, they're the three elements that I want to use from that business object repository as my service. So I'm going to get the data from there. So when I've finished that, it's created the link at the back end to say that's what this service will actually go get that information from that business object. So what I want to do now is create my where I'm going to hold that data in the service. So again, I'm going to create a service entity set which will hold that data. Again, call it user data. And then once I've got that user data, it says, right, is this data that you're going to create, can you update it? Can you create it? Can you delete it? Can you amend it, and so forth? So we're going to tick all of those. So once I start using this service to either I can now create the data in there, or I can read it, or I can amend it. So once we've done that, we can then map those across. So you can see here it says map to data source. So my service has got this user data in there, and it means I can update everything, but I now need to link it into that business object repository again. So just pull back that information, and now we can do the mapping from the service side into that business object repository. And very simply, again, it'll pull up the data structure, and I can say, right, username is going to be username. Last name and first name are going to be correlating along to last name and first name. And you can see the little blue arrows in the middle there. So we're going to pull the data up straight away from usernames. So that's going to be our list. And then obviously we can update and get information from that key. And that's the arrow going the other way to say that we'll then pull that information later on once we've selected the username that we want to get that information. So once I've done that, I can save it and create it as a SAP Gateway service. So all I'm going to do here is package it up under a temporary local package, give it a name, and so under temp, so it's a temporary local package, and I'm going to create that. So that's created me a service now. It doesn't mean I can access it. All I've done is create the service that gives me the ability to update that business object repository of get user data. So what I need to do now is go into the actual library which has got live gateway services. So here it is, and add a service to that. So these are all the live gateway services that are up and running, and this could contain our Fiori gateway services here. But what I want to do now is add a service to that. So if I click on add service, it will take me into where do I want to find this service. So it was actually on local. So now if I click on that, here's all the services that aren't live, that are in the back end, but we haven't made available yet. So once I find the right one, I click on it, say that's correct, and now save. And if I go back into now, these are the services that are actually live and I can gain access to from applications. A little bit down here, you should see, and I should highlight, there it is, the webinar service. So there we go. We've taken us through developing a gateway service. On top of this now, we develop a front end to access that. I'm not going to show that here. You'd either do that through developing UI5 as a development, or you'd go into a development environment such as Eclipse, such as Visual Composer, such as Visual Designer or Xcode to develop iOS, Java, UI5 or .NET applications from that service. So hopefully you've seen in that demonstration what SAP Fury is out of the box. When we looked at those three scenarios of sales order creation, my spend, and the PR approval mechanism, you've seen how we've themed them to make them look more like, in that scenario, CompriseIT's branding. And finally, we looked at how we extended it. So developing something brand new, but making it look as if it was part of the SAP Fury suite. So what happens now? When we down tools from this webinar, how do you get started? Well, one of the things we've done is put up a starter pack for you. So CompriseIT, because we're specialists in this technology, we're part of the SAP Design Partner Council for Gateway. We've been helping our customers develop gateway applications for the last 12 months and beyond. So we're up and running in live scenarios using UI5 and Gateway. And we're part of the UI5 Validation Partner Council, which means we get the UI5 libraries early when they're released, when new releases come along, so that we can test them and validate them and make sure they adhere to the standards. We're in a good position to help you get up and running, and we're prepared to do that for a fixed fee. Now, because Fiori out of the box is a standard offering, it's meant to work with any customer, there are some prereqs that you need in the back end of both your SAP system and your infrastructure. So the way we're going to do this is use a three-step process. The first is a questionnaire to see what your backends look like, what versions you're on, because actually if you're running SAP 4.6, for example, SAP Fury won't work out of the box. So that doesn't mean to say you can't use Gateway and UI5, it just means you can't use the standard SAP Fury applications. And we can work with you about how we could help you getting smart front ends into your environment after we've gone through that questionnaire and workshop. Even if you're using ERP6, depending on what enhancement pack you're on, you still have to have some support packs enabled for Fiori to work in a sort of an easy way. So again, that questionnaire provides us with the information we need to see how complicated getting Fiori to work in your environment is. Once we've got that questionnaire back, we'll organize a free half-day workshop with you to go through what you want to achieve with it, go through the questionnaires, anything that you might have to do to get it up and running before we come in and help you install it. And finally, once we've gone through those and proved theoretically that we can get Fiori up and running in your environment, we'll come in and install and configure those apps that you want. If those three apps and the infrastructure is not good and you want to extend that, we will extend that offer and add more enhancements or more apps to that base offering to meet your expectations. So it's not set in stone. The questionnaire and workshop can be used as a tool to enhance that. This offer is open until the end of March 2014. It'll cover the first 25 apps that we've seen today in the presentation and the demonstration, but also, as Kevin will explain a little bit later on, cover Wave 2, which is coming out later in the year. So with that, I'll hand you back to Kevin, who will go through the outlook of Fiori and where that's going in the next quarter, but beyond as well.
Thank you very much, John. Well, hopefully by now we've demonstrated to you that Fiori is about keeping simple things simple. As John has already mentioned, we've got 25 scenarios today, and as I alluded to right at the start of this presentation, these are our top 25. We've actually spoken to all of our customers. We've got a co-innovation program that's currently running, and we're still looking at what needs to be extended, which other parts of the solution, such as CRM, Suite on HANA, for example, and what we can do to extend Fiori moving forward. So what we're going to see by the end of this year is over 180 different scenarios which are going to be delivered in what we call discrete packages. These packages can be installed on top of the core scenarios. The core scenarios, which are the 25 which we've mentioned today, will be extended to around 50 of those scenarios, so we'll take on additional capabilities and additional roles other than the 4 that we've seen today. We're also going to start looking at including reporting capabilities, or what you see on the screen here referred to as fact sheets. These are very simplistic reports which no longer require the GUI but will require the front-end UI5 component. In addition to that capability, what you will have noticed throughout all of the demonstration and throughout all of the theming and all of the examples that we've given you is SAP Fiori is online. With the addition of SAP Mobile Platform, specifically release 3.0, we will offer the ability to do offline OData capability. So as you can see on the screen, what we can do today is direct access from the desktop, the tablet, the mobile device. Basically, a browser can access NetWeaver Gateway, which can in turn access the back-end capability. What we're going to be releasing at the end of this year is the SAP Mobile Infrastructure, which will incorporate a new offline web capsule. Fiori will become part of that. That will give the additional capability of being able to sync, do simple actions offline, and then sync up at a later date. Okay, so hopefully you've understood a little bit about what SAP Fiori is. Hopefully you'll have understood how simple the scenarios are available for today, and hopefully you'll have understood how simple it is to extend and create your own with the additional services and packages that are available through our partner CompriseIT. I'd like to thank you for your time in today's session, and just open the floor for any questions as we move forward. Thank you very much.